and thank you for talking to us today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
You're going to be one of the keynote speakers at the DCS this year. So I was hoping that maybe you would like to give everyone listening a brief overview of you in your career.
Okay, sure. Well, currently I'm at Nippon Express. I've been here for the last 3 years, and my main responsibility is the global head of sales for non-Japanese customers. So it's sort of a new embarkation for Nippon Express, focusing more on sort of a new market for us, right? Trying to expand our global reach. But prior to this, I've sort of spent quite a long time at companies like DHL, Agility, Geodis, UPS in the background, and around about 25 or so years, too long to remember, mostly in commercial functions.
So what got you to start working in the shipping industry?
Purely by accident. I actually wanted a career in sales, and I spent my first 4 years selling photocopiers and computers. And I actually stumbled across, I got sent for an interview with TNT, at first, and I thought, sounds interesting. Ended up working for UPS, and it kind of it's just addictive. It's you just become like a sponge, and what is there not to like? Lots of travel, lots of exotic destinations and problems to solve. So it kind of just matched with my interest, and that was a long time ago. So 28 years ago, to be precise.
And you're mentioning a lot of things that you have experienced in your career. What would you say is the most memorable experience you've had?
I've always enjoyed the multiculturalism. The challenges in one country are the same challenges in another, but just in a different way. So problem solving and finding solutions for people is just something which has gripped me and kept me in the industry.
So now 25 years in, what would you then give your younger self as advice before you actually started working in the shipping industry?
I could almost say don't do it. Go into banking, there's certainly a lot more money in banking. No, but in all seriousness, I think probably the best advice I could give to a younger me was to be myself. Sounds really obvious, but I think as you get older and more experienced, you learn to trust your instinct a lot more. And I kind of wish I'd have done that a lot earlier. And that's something that, again, you only get with experience and growth. So not probably the most exciting answers, but I think, if I just listened to my gut a little bit more, right? And in some ways, maybe it's kind of a British thing, fighting for the underdog. Sometimes you've got to learn when to say no.
And have you learned that by now then?
No. No, I think we do. We get wiser with age, and more experience that we get. We sort of learn the signs sooner. But I think sometimes it's better to come back and fight another day than to lose the battle completely. And
you mentioned 25 years in the business, and that's also, due to your experience and knowledge in the industry, that you're going to be a keynote speaker at the DCS. Could you tell us, what are you actually going to be talking about?
No. No, actually, one of the topics is sort of quite a joke. As we get older in our career, we become less tech savvy because tech overtakes us. Data and lots of things that we all started with in a very manual industry is overtaking, but not just overtaking, it's coming on at such a rapid pace, and it's really quite an exciting time for the industry. And digitization of the supply chain, digitization of freight forwarding, it's become such a massive topic. And big data about is, we get a lot of people talk about how big data and market analysis can improve procurement, right? Or improve, take days off their supply chain, or improve productivity. What I'm going to be talking about is how we can use that big data to improve our sales ratios. So how do we win more business by analyzing data, using that data intelligently, and really being able to go to market with much more strategic and better knowledge on how to attract our customers in the right way. but equally how to say no to the wrong customers. So that's really going to be my main topic, and really talking about the transformational journey of going through, if you look at legacy systems that a lot of the traditional freight forwarders have and our industry has got, and how things are now moving on at such a pace, how do we embrace that, and how do we switch from that legacy mentality to non-legacy systems, right? And how do we position ourselves for the future? So it's an incredible topic, and a lot of fantastic experts that I've managed to meet on my journey learning about this. But on my personal journey, I don't come from a procurement background. I come from essentially a sales background. And so I want to show how, some simple lessons on how we can take that data and that knowledge and embrace that can really help us assist our sales goals and company goals and perspectives.
So why would you say that you're excited to talk about exactly that at the DCS?
I'm at heart, I'm still a salesman. Okay? And whilst I've done many jobs in that, I think, one of the challenges is how do we keep selling and how do we keep interested? And what I enjoy is, engaging with customers in exactly this topic, because, winning is always important. And I enjoy, winning new business and enjoy winning new relationships with customers. But how do we keep that current? How do we enable the customers to achieve their objectives in terms of trying to reduce their costs, perhaps? So how do we win, make this a triple win-win-win scenario where we can all gain from using data intelligently, really analyzing costs, analyzing market positioning. And more importantly, it's not just about costs, right? What's really important is how do we create the value around that? How do we differentiate ourselves so that, yes, people are much more aware now of what costs are, right? But there's also an awareness of what value is, right? So there's always going to be a premium that somebody pays for one service over the other. So that's going to be part of my message and part of the discussion, and hopefully people will enjoy or like to participate in that sort of discussion and challenge.
So you're talking about data and how to use data. Is that something that's going to be difficult and tricky to comprehend for people, how to actually use it?
Look, if I can understand it, I'm sure they can. Keeping it simple is really important, but not without giving too much away. I think for me there are three fundamentals, right, in any business. I think first of all, understanding the market you're in, and the market you're in has a price, right, and a price that a customer is willing to pay. Now, as a supplier, you have a cost, right? So that cost, you've got to understand where that is in regards to the market price. So that first of all tells you whether you're procuring well, right, or procuring badly. So if your cost is higher than the market price, you've got somewhere to go, and you've got a battle to overcome. However, if your cost is below the market price, then you're positioned for profit, and you're also positioned to help you win, right? But the key thing is quite often those margins are being squeezed. So cost, market price, and selling price are really important things. So the difference between the market price and the selling price is really the value that you can bring to the customer. So the good news is, whilst everybody talks about digitization and how the market's moving ahead, I still think that humans have a value in terms of creating value and interpreting that data into a way that makes sense for customers and, of course, suppliers.
So, boiled down, why should people attend your keynote?
Very simply, do you want more sales?
That's catchy.
No, but I think it's an important part of it, because so many times we concentrate big data and analytics on procurement, and general supply chain metrics, and it is very important in that field. And let's not take away from that. But I think the other point is, how do we apply that in a sales environment? How do we utilize that to give a value proposition and help us sell more, right? And I think that's, if we can help people, and we're all coming into a very, very difficult time now after, post-COVID, as we try to find a new normality. Costs are increasing and will continue to stay higher. And I think it's going to be really important now that as we level set, right? We really try to bring all of those factors in place, really start to understand what our new costs are, really start to understand what the new supply chains are going to look like, and more importantly, really try to build the right value into our propositions.
You mentioned earlier, like in a side note, the digitalization and human work. If we're looking into the future, what would you then say is the digital progress that we should be keeping an eye on?
Well, there's a couple of things about the future. I think the first is watch out for the Japanese companies. We're coming. But that's the sales bit aside. Now, in all reality, what we have to look forward to, I think, is an amount of tremendous change coming through the industry. I was looking at some recent surveys against some business leaders, logistics supply chain leaders recently. And number one, in terms of the key things that they think post-COVID freight forwarding in our industry needs to address is digitization of supply chain, digitization of freight forwarding overall. So there's a lot of new technology out there, and some old words as well, things like blockchain, and they've had various sort of false starts, but I think we will start to see much more of that. There's a lot of tremendous companies coming through the market now with go-to-market e-commerce solutions and digitizing of, if I look at the traditional freight forwarders with our legacy systems, to try to make wholesale global change in these environments is a very, very tough thing to do. But things have become so much easier with APIs and cloud-based computing. It's much quicker to tap into some of these tools that are out there. So I think that's a really exciting time. Being of the older sort of generation, really, I still think there's a part for humans to interpret that and to play a part. But let's not take away from the tremendous advances in RPAs, that we can start to do a lot of these manual jobs more effectively, quicker, and actually start to improve cost bases, right? Because again, cost is still very important to everybody. And if we can do it cheaper, that savings theoretically be passed on to the end user as well. So yeah, I think we've got a tremendously exciting time. And there's a lot of consolidation going on also within the digital space right now. And the early adopters, I mean, what we've always seen through time is, early adopters into mobile technology with companies like Motorola and Nokia, as an example. Where are they today? Things have just moved on, with the advent of Apple. And I think we'll start to see that with digitization. Some real leaders, in that field will come through and really sort of try to take more of a commanding space in that. But how quickly we all move forward onto those is a different thing.
But do you think that the industry is going to move faster now because of the pandemic and everything?
I think it's forced us into re-looking at this. I mean, as an example, I work for a Japanese company, and traditionally the Japanese mentality is let's always work from the office, crazy hours, and it is part of our culture. This has forced us to look at different solutions. It has forced us to work from home and look at home working and different ways, to do things, shift work. And what we found is that actually we can do it, right? And we can still maintain service levels. Maybe not quite as effectively, but there is a different way. So it has forced that change. It has forced people to look at investment because we still don't know when we can return back to a normality. And, it has allowed us to really start looking at how do we do that more effectively, in a digitized way, right? And even for ourselves and the manual signatures that need to be done, we've found ways to do it digitally in a very simple way. So if we can do that, I've got my analytics people who previously were very restricted with bandwidth, and by taking advantage of things like Python, have been able to crunch massive amounts of data from home from a slower bandwidth file. And we do that, just as effectively working from home. So it hasn't needed that we've had to take up a huge amount of resources through the office and bandwidth. So yeah, look, there's a lot of ways on how we can all change from the small things. And I can confidently say that, this is going to be a major topic for the next few years about how do we keep pushing that forward. It's a lot of it's around productivity.
Yeah, and it's also going to be a topic we're going to be discussing at the Digital Container Summit, and we're looking forward to hearing you speak there as well. So thank you for taking the time today.
Great. I look forward to that. Thank you very much.
In between your sessions, you can enjoy some awesome keynotes and workshops to which you can actually bookmark on your schedule in advance. And the event is open for 24 hours to accommodate everyone all over the world.